The night sky on Arden Prime was a swirl of violet and gold, with twin moons casting faint reflections on the silver-tinted foliage of the forest. Cale had just completed another long day of research at the colony's scientific outpost. The work was monotonous, yet fulfilling, especially in a place so different from the crowded, noisy planets of human space. His duties mostly involved monitoring the local flora and fauna for possible terraforming adaptation, a task requiring patience and keen observation. As he trudged along the narrow path leading back to his isolated dwelling, Cale noticed movement near a grove of luminous trees. At first, he thought it was a native creature, but the shape slowly took form, standing upright and watching him with curious, large eyes that reflected the light of the moons. "Hello?" Cale called cautiously, gripping the handle of his utility tool. The figure stepped closer, revealing herself as an alien woman with skin that shimmered faintly like liquid silver. Her hair floated in soft tendrils, almost as if it were responding to the wind, though there was no breeze. "I am Alira," she said in a voice melodic and calming. "I crave company. May I share your dwelling?" Cale blinked, unsure if he had misheard. He had never encountered a being of this kind, so openly expressive, nor had he expected an alien to request shared living arrangements. I suppose that is possible," he said after a pause. "My home is small, but you are welcome." Alira's eyes brightened, and she inclined her head with a fluid motion. She followed him along the path, her steps silent despite her size. Cale led her to a modest structure made of lightweight alloy and reinforced glass, a one-room house equipped with basic amenities. "You live alone?" she asked once inside, her voice echoing faintly against the metallic walls. "Yes," Cale replied. "I prefer solitude, but I have not had visitors for months." Alira moved to the central table, her fingers brushing lightly over the surface, making it glow faintly. "I have observed you from afar. Your routines are precise, your mind disciplined. I wish to understand you." Cale felt a strange warmth at her words, though he could not quite explain why. "Then you may stay. But I must warn you, my life is not exciting. Days are long, nights longer." She smiled softly. "Excitement is not always necessary. Presence is." In the first few days, Alira adjusted with a quiet grace. She moved like water through the house, cleaning, arranging, even interacting with the holographic devices Cale used for his research. She asked questions about human habits, foods, and emotions. Her curiosity was insatiable, yet always polite, never intrusive. Cale began to notice subtle changes in himself. The solitude he had cherished now felt heavier without her presence. And her questions, though simple, often made him think more deeply about things he had taken for granted. She asked why humans laughed, why they argued, why they celebrated simple victories. Each query made Cale realize how narrowly he had been living. One evening, the colony's communication beacon alerted him to a potential anomaly in the forest. Cale prepared for investigation, donning his environmental suit. Alira watched quietly, tilting her head as he moved. "You will face danger?" she asked. "Possibly. The sensors detected unusual energy signatures. Nothing I can't handle, but it requires caution." Alira nodded and reached out to touch his arm. The contact was warm, almost electric. "I will accompany you." "It is comforting." Cale hesitated. Humans were not supposed to travel with alien beings in such conditions. There were regulations, protocols, but the sincerity in her eyes overrode caution. "Very well," he said. Together, they ventured into the forest. The trees' phosphorescent leaves illuminated the path, creating long, stretching shadows. Alira seemed attuned to the environment, moving with a precision that suggested a connection with the land. They reached the anomaly, a crystalline formation pulsating with soft violet light. Kale's instruments went haywire, reading energy levels, far beyond what the sensors were calibrated for. "It is alive," Elira whispered. "Or, it contains life." Kale knelt and carefully collected a sample, ensuring that the formation remained undisturbed. Elira observed, her luminous fingers barely brushing the crystal, which seemed to respond with a soft hum. Kale realized that she could communicate with it in some way he did not understand, and the realization filled him with awe. Back at the house, they examined the sample. Elira's understanding of energy and life surpassed anything Kale had learned. She explained its properties, its potential for enhancing ecosystems, even suggested ways to study it without harm. Kale felt a surge of pride mixed with humility. Humans were strong, resourceful, and clever. Yet there were beings in the galaxy whose wisdom was entirely different. Over weeks, Elira's presence became an anchor for Kale. He found himself sharing memories of Earth, stories from childhood, experiences from training academies, all the small details he had previously thought unimportant. She listened without judgment, often repeating phrases to understand them fully. In return, she shared tales of her own species' history, their migrations between star systems, their art, and the way they felt the pulse of their homeworld in. Ways humans could not. Kale realized that the colony had underestimated how connection could alter perception. Humans often prided themselves on independence, on the ability to endure loneliness. Yet in Elira's presence, he discovered a different kind of strength, the strength to feel, to empathize, and to expand one's understanding beyond species. Boundaries. One night, while observing the twin moons from the house's balcony, Kale spoke softly. "I never imagined I would feel less alone in this universe than I did on Earth." Elira turned to him, her hair catching the moonlight. "Loneliness is a construct. It is a choice to remain closed or to open oneself. You have chosen well." There. Collaboration extended to practical endeavors as well. Kale taught Elira how to operate the laboratory instruments. She, in turn, showed him ways to detect patterns in the forest that his instruments could not pick up. Together, they discovered new flora species, cataloged unknown minerals, and even began experiments to accelerate photosynthesis in the local plant life. The outpost's command eventually took notice, reporting unprecedented progress in research. Kale could not claim credit alone, but he did not mind. The success belonged to both of them. Despite the closeness, Kale never felt forced or smothered. Elira understood boundaries instinctively, giving him space while still providing companionship. Their days formed a rhythm: exploration in the mornings, study in the afternoons, quiet conversations at night. Through her, Kale learned to appreciate small things, the hum of the forest, the sparkle of a crystal under twin moons, the soft brush of wind against the alloy walls. One morning, Elira suggested they visit a cavern she had sensed in the hills beyond the forest. Kale agreed, and they traveled across uneven terrain, the forest gradually giving way to rolling hills streaked with silver grasses. The cavern entrance shimmered with faint light, hinting at mineral deposits, reflecting the twin suns that would rise later. Inside, the walls were covered with patterns of crystal veins, pulsing faintly with energy. Elira's body glowed slightly in response, and she spoke softly in her language, a series of tones and vibrations that resonated with the crystals. Kale listened, enraptured, and realized the cavern itself was a living memory, preserving echoes of her ancestors' journeys. "This place, it tells stories," Elira explained, translating her impressions. "It remembers, and it shares with those willing to listen." Kale felt humbled. Humans had not yet discovered such forms of communication. Here, history was alive, encoded in matter and energy, not written or spoken. The experience made him reflect on humanity's achievements and limitations, but also The possibilities when minds collaborated across worlds. Weeks turned into months, and the bond between Kale and Illyra deepened. Colony personnel occasionally visited, curious about his companion. Some were skeptical, others wary, but Kale learned to navigate their questions with tact. He spoke of Illyra not as an oddity, but as a partner in exploration, a teacher, and a friend. She, in turn, remained graceful and unassuming, never seeking recognition, only presence. Kale realized he had changed profoundly. The isolation he once considered essential now seemed like a void he had unknowingly feared. Illyra's presence had expanded his understanding of companionship, collaboration, and empathy. He found joy in simplicity, in shared observation, in quiet laughter over trivial discoveries, in the comfort of shared space without intrusion. One evening, as the sky bathed in violet twilight, Kale and Illyra sat outside, watching the moon's reflections ripple across a small pond. "I am grateful," Kale said, "for your company, your guidance, and for this life I had not imagined." Illyra's gaze softened. "Gratitude is a reflection, not a demand. You have given me presence, attention, and willingness to learn. That is enough." They remained in silence, comfortable and aware of each other's presence. Beyond the house, the forest pulsed with life, and the universe stretched infinitely, a canvas for exploration, understanding, and connection. In that vast expanse, two beings from entirely different worlds had found harmony, not through dominance or conquest, but through curiosity, respect, and the simple craving to share a home. Kale finally understood that the human drive to explore was not only about conquering new frontiers, but about discovering resonance, connection, and the strength